Hello and welcome to Newsclick. I'm Paranjoy Guha Thakurta and I'm sitting at the residence of the former Finance Minister and External Affairs Minister of India, Yashwant Sinha ji. Thank you, Yashwant Sinha, for giving us your time. And it's not been very long, the 21st of April, on your older son Jan's birthday, you decided to quit a political party with which you have been associated for about 3 decades. And you said you don't want to have anything more to do with the Bharatiya Janata Party. You've launched a front called the Rashtriya Manch, and you're saying you not only are you going to join any political party, you will not accept any post. Now, why did you choose this specific occasion to quit a political party with which you have been associated, correct me if I'm wrong, since the late 80s, soon after you left the Indian Administrative Service and joined politics in 1986?
I joined politics, just a factual correction, in 1984, end of 1984, but I joined the Janata Party of Mr. Chandrasekhar at that point of time. It was after some years in 1993 that I joined the Bharatiya Janata Party. So it has been an association of over 2.5 decades. My longest political association with any political party in my career has been with the Bharatiya Janata Party. So it was heart-wrenching, to tell you quite frankly. I chose 21st April not because it was Jan's birthday so much, but because we had planned a program in Patna, and it was a Rashtriya Manch program, national forum that I set up in January. It was a program of that organization or association, and I had been thinking about this for quite some time. You're aware of the fact that I have been critical of the government.
I'm aware of that. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Yes, on a number of issues. But when I found that there was no response, then I made up my mind that there was no point in continuing this sterile association.
Sir, if I can interrupt you, you have been a critic of the present government for quite some time. What I'm trying to find out is what really made you realize on the 21st of April or soon before that, to use your words, democracy was in danger under the Narendra Modi government, that somehow the government had so undermined democratic institutions in the country that you felt that its restoration would be a long, long time. So you didn't want to be associated with a party with which your son is associated, who continues to remain a Minister of State for Civil Aviation.
Yes. No, it is, let me tell you, the first feeling that things were not all right within the Bharatiya Janata Party came from friends that I met across the board, members of parliament, even ministers, others. And I realized that there was within the party a very strong sense of fear. People were scared. They were scared to talk to me. They were scared to talk about what was happening. And, that gave me, members of parliament told me that in our time, when I was a member of parliament, we had free exchange of views in our parliamentary party meetings. They said it has become one-sided. They speak, we listen. We don't get opportunity to put our point of view or our problems before the leadership. Nana Patole, who was the MP from Maharashtra, he left because he did not.
You openly said that my views are not being listened to.
He was not being listened to. So, some people have taken the extremist step, but others are leading a life of fear within the Bharatiya.
In fact, on the 27th of September 2017 in the Indian Express, the article that they titled, "I Need to Speak Up Now," you said you'll be failing in your national duty if you do not speak up now. And you said that you're convinced that what you're saying reflects the views or the sentiments of a large number of people in the BJP who are not speaking up because of fear.
Yeah.
You think so that atmosphere of fear is continuing?
Is continuing, and I tested it for the first time when I wrote that article in the Indian Express last September. And then more recently, before I left the party, you will recall that I had written an open letter to BJP MPs and especially requested senior most leaders like Advani ji and Murli Manohar Joshi ji to do something about the prevailing atmosphere of fear. But again, there was no response. And then, in the meanwhile, Patna was coming up on the 21st of April. And therefore, I decided that there is no point in appealing to people within the party. They will perhaps not have the courage just now. So I must appeal to a wider audience, must appeal to the people of the country. This is one part. The second most important part of this is that all the institutions of democracy in our country are under threat. They are, their effectiveness is being eroded. And that is something which bothers me. So just to name Parliament, Supreme Court, Election Commission, media,
Reserve Bank of India,
agencies, investigating agencies of the government, you name them and they are all being compromised.
So let's talk about these in a little while from now. But since you mentioned the name of Shri L.K. Advani, Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi, there's also Shanta Kumarji. There have been many others, including Mr. Arun Shourie, Govindacharya. And in fact, sometimes you are described as the angry old men of the BJP. And everybody says you have a personal grounds. I remember you even said that, do people stop thinking when you're 70? The whole idea was that it was suggested when your son became the Minister of State for Finance that, Mr. Modi didn't like, this familial connection because he was very critical of the Gandhi-Nehru family. So he said, if your son Jainji has been made a Minister of State for Finance, why should you also aspire for a post? And throughout the narrative has been, Yashwant Sinha is unhappy because he hasn't been given a job. All kinds of suggestions were made that there was a BRICS Bank, you were thinking of the BRICS Bank. And if you recall, after the Indian Express article of the 27th of September, soon thereafter, Mr. Arun Jaitley, the finance minister, sarcastically, without mentioning your name, said there are people who have become a job applicant at 80. So it has been painted out that you have a personal grouse. And that's why all your anger is that of a personal nature against the present government.
I mean, this question must be answered. I have answered it in the past, but I'd like to answer it because you have asked me this question. In 2014, when the Lok Sabha elections were taking place, I personally decided that I will not contest that election. Okay? You go and ask anyone, senior leader of the party, and I had told everyone that I would not be contesting the Lok Sabha elections because I wanted to opt out of this kind of electoral politics. So they gave the nomination to my son, who contested and won. And
from Hazaribagh.
From Hazaribagh, and became a Minister of State in the government. Now, I knew quite well, even at that point of time, that there can't be two people in government from the same family. And I opted out. I did not contest the elections. Therefore, when I did not contest the election, it was quite clear to me, as it should have been to the others, that I was not aspiring for any post. Okay? But, not aspiring for any post is not the same thing as not getting some respect from the government or the party to which I had belonged. And even Mr. Modi, when he took over as Prime Minister, he had, I must say to his credit, invited me to a meeting in which we discussed the replacement of the Planning Commission with Niti Aayog. Why did he invite me? I was not a member of the government, but he thought that maybe I had something to say on a subject like this. After that, I wrote him letters. After that, I made suggestions to the government on a number of issues because, as you recalled, attaining the age of 75 does not mean that you have stopped thinking. So I thought about things, especially about national issues, and I wanted to tell the government about some of those issues. But that opportunity was denied to me, and it was said as if what is it that they could do to me? They can't bring, and I am saying it with a challenge, they will not be able to bring charges of corruption against me. Nobody has brought charges of corruption
There have
against me.
been controversies. We can talk about those.
No. Forget the controversies. A controversy can be raised by vested interests about you, me, anybody. But because that is closed, therefore what else? What other charge can there be? That other charge can be that I am interested in a job opportunity. I am looking for a job. As Arun Jaitley said, I have replied to that. I am not interested, and that's why in Patna I made it very clear that I will not join another political party and that I am not a claimant for any job in future. Now, what could be more straightforward than this?
Correct.
And how can this charge then stand against me?
Yashwant Sinha ji, you have been very critical of the government, as you've said. You've described the present government as a one-man show run by the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. You've gone to the extent of suggesting that the current atmosphere of fear that is prevailing is worse than that was prevailing during the emergency in the mid-70s when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. You've gone to the extent of suggesting that even there's been some sort of a surveillance operation taking place with even attempts to, put in chips in set-top boxes. Are you not overreacting that this government is sort of scared everybody and spying on everybody, conducting some sort of mass surveillance operations? And isn't the analogy with the Indira Gandhi's emergency a bit stretched that, then the civil liberties, the civil rights of the country were completely abridged, and the media was completely censored, barring a few people who protested? How can you compare the situation prevailing in this mid-70s till now to what is happening today?
Indira Gandhi's emergency was, to borrow a Hindi phrase, a jhatka operation. Suddenly one day or one night it was announced that emergency has been imposed. Many people were put behind bars, and restrictions were imposed on a number of institutions, including the media. Now, this is something which everyone felt, that here is, emergency which has been imposed. In this case, in the present case, it is slow poison. It's not a jhatka, it's not a sudden operation. It is slow poison which is being injected into the system. Liberties, freedoms are being taken away, and we are not conscious of it because it's not hitting us as much as Indira Gandhi's emergency hit us. But I had told you earlier that if you look at any of the institutions of democracy, you will find the very sorry state in which they are. And if you give me the time, I'd like to begin with the Parliament of India. Okay, I have spent a lot of time in the Parliament of India.
You first became a Rajya Sabha MP in 1988, am I correct?
Yes.
And almost continuously...
Almost continuously in Parliament, and thrice in the Lok Sabha, right? Now, what is the most important function of Lok Sabha? The most important function of Lok Sabha is to determine whether the government of the day has majority or not, isn't it?
One of the important points.
But the most important, I'll say, because
it's also to enact laws.
No, it's to do a lot of other things.
Okay.
But the most important constitutional responsibility of the Lok Sabha is to determine the majority of the government, because once that majority goes, even by one vote, then the government goes.
Right.
Okay.
You remember April 1999, Atal
Yes.
Bihari Vajpayee's government, one vote.
Yeah, one vote. So that is the strength, that is the power, that is the majesty of democracy.
And this time you have a government who's not even willing to admit a confidence motion.
A no confidence motion filed by a number of parties in the opposition was not allowed to come up, and every day the speaker will get up and just say, I can't count 50 people and therefore I'm unable to admit the motion. Then why should there be a Lok Sabha? Because it failed to perform. In the den, she got the budget passed, including the finance bill, with very important amendments. But she could not count 50 people because it was being deliberately disrupted. Parliament was being, Lok Sabha was being deliberately disrupted by the ruling party people.
Why would they do it? They had a comfortable majority.
They had, but
there was no issue.
Right,
there was no question of the government losing a vote of confidence on the floor of the House.
But that's where you are making a mistake, Paranjay ji. There would have been a discussion.
That's right.
In the discussion, a whole host of issues would have been raised. The failures of the government would have been pointed out. The media, despite all the curbs, would have carried some of it. It would have reached the people of the country that this is how the government is functioning. They did not want that discussion. I don't believe in rumors that some MPs of the BJP would have voted against the government. But the government would certainly have been criticized severely by the opposition.
Even though the opposition is weak.
Even though the opposition is weak and even though the government would have one majority. But where does it say in the rules of Lok Sabha that a vote of confidence, no confidence, can be brought only when you have a majority to prove that the government does not have a majority? Where does it say that? So, Lok Sabha has not been allowed by the government to perform its most important constitutional responsibility.
I stop you here. We will discuss this. I mean, there are a number of things to discuss. Let me take on one issue, and because it is topical. And that is this whole issue of, don't call it corruption, call it sweetheart deals. I want your opinion on what you think the media reports concerning the Minister for Railways, Mr. Piyush Goyal, and his wife. Now, we've recently had a rejoinder coming in from the Piramal group, and because it has been alleged in that article that there was some sort of a quote-unquote sweetheart deal between the two. And the Piramal group has said there's no conflict of interest and on issues of valuation there can be a dispute. But the more important question is, why is it that Mr. Piyush Goyal did not disclose these facts and the transactions and the sales of these assets and of the companies where he and his wife are controlling these firms to the public at large? You know, the Prime Minister has made it clear that all the ministers have to disclose their assets. The Election Commission of India has certain rules about affidavits. What are your views on the recent controversy about
My
Mr.
view
Piyush?
is very clear. And it's not only about Piyush Goyal case. It's about a number of other things, other cases also. You know, some facts come to the notice or come into the public domain. They raise a doubt. Now, the policy of the government has been that if it is going to be inconvenient, the truth coming out is going to be inconvenient, then let's kill it at that stage itself, so that truth does not come out. And I'm sorry to say that where there has been very strong prima facie reasons for a further inquiry or investigation, they have been stopped. The government just says, no, it's not necessary.
No, I recall when your son's name appeared in the Paradise papers, you said that please investigate his involvement. Just like you said, if the son of the Bharatiya Janata Party president, Mr. Amit Shah, his son, Mr. Jay Shah, if their companies have done something which is irregular or illegal, that should be investigated.
It was never investigated. Jay Shah's case.
But it was not alleged that there was any corrupt practice. It was merely what you might call a sweetheart deal where his company's businesses suddenly shot up in little time.
And then closed.
That's what the official records seem to suggest.
Then you know, it burst into flames and closed. No, the point I'm making it, in his case, as in Jayant Sinha's case, if anybody felt that there was a case for further inquiry, in Justice Loya's case, if there was a case for further inquiry, in Piyush Goyal's case, you think that facts would suggest prima facie that there should be an inquiry, why are we running away from that inquiry? Why can't we have an inquiry or an investigation and bring out all the facts in public domain? And then let the public decide whether there was conflict of interest.
Why do you think so? Why is the government
Because government is trying to conceal something which will cause embarrassment to the government.
You mentioned justice.
It's as clear as that.
You mentioned Justice Loya, but before I come to the Justice Loya and the controversies relating to the Supreme Court of India, while you were writing, you wrote an article in NDTV on the 20th of February, where you laid out, you asked for about 10 questions from the government on the scandal, on the scandal in the Punjab National Bank pertaining to companies controlled by Mr. Nirav Modi and his uncle, Mr. Mehul Choksi. Now, you have there pointed out that when you were the finance minister, there were Ketan Parekh scam, and when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, there was a Harshad Mehta scam, and both of you appeared before the Joint Parliamentary Committee to explain your position. You also, in your own biography, which I read and reviewed, you yourself described the scandal pertaining to the Unit Trust of India as something that, you know, you feel you are regretful that you acted in the way you did. I'll read out the exact sentence. The whole UTI affair is a very sorry chapter of my tenure as finance minister, and you conceded that you made a mistake in not cancelling a meeting you had with Mr. Vajpayee. So I'm saying here, in the case of the Nirav Modi scandal, do you think also the government is deliberately suppressing information? It finds out how quickly the valuation of the goods that have been seized, but it's not mentioning whether the letters of undertaking, which year, when it went, a lot of information is not being disclosed.
The most important question there is, how did he run away from the country? How did Nirav Modi, how was he allowed to leave India? How did he get photographed in that Hall of Fame photograph?
In the Davos meeting.
In the Davos meeting with the Prime Minister. You know, because these things don't happen in a jiffy. They build up over a period of time. And his scandal was building up over a period of time. Mehul Choksi, Nirav Modi. And then he runs away from the country. After some time, we'll forget about it because some police investigation will take place. And let me tell you here and now that I have lost faith in even CBI inquiries.
So you think the same story with Mr. Lalit Modi, Mr. Vijay Mallya is going to be repeated?
It has been repeated. It has been repeated.
And others?
There could have been. I would have demanded a joint parliamentary committee inquiry. But after the 2G joint parliamentary committee, unfortunately, I have lost faith in the JPC system also. But when the Harshad Mehta scam took place, we had a Congress chairman of the JPC.
I know, Mr. Ramnivas
Mirdha. And he was a gentleman to the core. And we were in the opposition, and he allowed us not only to ask any question that we wanted to ask.
You grilled those people.
Yes, but also asked us to write various chapters of the report where he thought that we had more knowledge and expertise.
No.
But is that happening now?
No, but why are you holding the finance minister responsible? I read out from your article. You said it is not possible for any finance minister to personally supervise the day-to-day functioning of every organization and institution under his control, which includes a whole host of organizations. Yet under our parliamentary system, the ultimate responsibility will rest with the minister who is responsible for that ministry, so the finance ministry cannot be absolved of his constitutional and democratic responsibility. Are you being fair to Mr. Jaitley?
Let me explain. You mentioned UTI crisis which took place.
2001.
Yeah. Did the government of India have a representative on the board of the UTI? No. We had nothing to do apart from the fact that LIC and certain other
public sector
institutions had shareholdings in the UTI. The government had nothing to do with the UTI. Absolutely nothing. In Chidambaram's time, UTI had been released from all controls.
There were two separate organizations.
From the government.
Yes, there was.
So, if I can be responsible for Ketan Parekh or UTI or Manmohan Singh for Harshad Mehta, how can Jaitley not be held responsible constitutionally and morally and legally for what happened with the Punjab National Bank, which is a public sector bank? Therefore, we have to make a distinction between the day-to-day functioning of an institution, organization within the ministry and the overall constitutional and moral responsibility. For that, who is responsible? To Parliament. The finance minister. Who takes complete responsibility? The finance minister. So, Parliament has to hold the government generally and Jaitley in particular as responsible.
Okay. Now, Mr. Sinha, you know, when you have been critical of the government, the issues have been muddied again and again by personalizing the issues. For instance, when you wrote that article in the Indian Express in September 2017, the response came from your son. You had made a series of remarks about what you felt was mismanagement of the economic affairs of the country by Mr. Jaitley, the finance minister. The response came from your son, Jayant Sinha. So you're being said that you're at best being hypocritical. Your own son is very much a part of the government. And yes, of course, he's an independent person. So what if he's your son? He's educated, he's studied in eminent or well-known educational institutions, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, Harvard Business School. He's held important positions. But this whole attempt that your son is made to refute
I'll tell you why. Yeah. I'll tell you why. First of all, that article which I wrote in the Indian Express created ripples which were quite unexpected. Even I did not expect that it will cause that kind of waves in the system. But it did for whatever reason. Must be because it touched a chord somewhere. The other is that after that, the success of that article, let's put it that way, the government adopted a two-pronged strategy to counter it. One was to reduce it to the level of a father-son duel, a debate between a father and a son. So Jayant Sinha wrote that piece, and everybody, even today you are asking me, Jayant wrote that piece, and he's your own son, and how do you explain it? Number two, they tried to trivialize it by Jaitley making that personal allegation that I am
a job
applicant at 80. Apropos nothing. There was no provocation in that function for him to say that, but he said it because he wanted to trivialize the whole thing. My contention all along and even today is, please reply to the issues that I have raised.
Yeah, you've raised a whole set of issues on demonetization,
please
goods
reply.
And services tax, job creation, agrarian crisis,
please reply to those issues. Why make it a father and son debate? Why make it a personal debate between Arun Jaitley and me? No, I am not interested in that. And I must tell you that because of the reply that I gave on both counts, that attempt of the government did not succeed. And people did not believe that it was a father-son debate only, or that I was really looking for a job.
I want to take you a little bit back in time and then come back to the present. You know, it is said that after you worked with the Indian Administrative Service, the IAS, for about 24 years, and then subsequently you joined politics, you were at that point of time fairly close with, among other politicians, Karpuri Thakurji, and that there were certain socialist leanings in you, and that you were at times not so happy with the Ayodhya movement, that your relationship with L.K. Advani ji has been sort of blow hot, blow cold, love, hate, if you like. You were critical of his visit to Pakistan and some of the points he made. But now you're seen as the same side, also critical, sometimes thing. I want to ask you 2 points. What is your association with Mr. Advani, and why do you think Mr. Advani has not publicly endorsed the points that you've made? And secondly, I want you to talk about the second part of the question, is the allegation by the opposition that our society has become excessively communalized. The Hindu-Muslim divide has worsened for a variety of reasons, including the whole cow slaughter business, ghar wapsi, etc. And you yourself, I think you were arrested briefly in Hazaribagh on April 2007 for holding a religious procession. I'm linking up many things, sir. We start with Mr. Advani and then the communal issue.
You know, I worked with Karpuri Thakur as a civil servant. Then I joined the Janata Party, which was headed by Mr. Chandrasekhar. He was another socialist. As a civil servant, I did not have an ideology. And that's a point which I have made very clear from time to time. I studied socialism as part of my...
You were a teacher of political science?
Yes. So it's not that I'm unaware of the philosophies, political philosophies, whether of socialism or communism or market economy or whatever. But as a civil servant, I did not have a pronounced ideological leaning. One should not have, and I also did not have. But because of my association with Karpuri Thakur and with Chandrasekhar, it was assumed that I had a socialist leaning, and I am not going to contradict that. Yes, I believe in socialism, I believe in equality of opportunity, and I believe in a society which takes everyone along. Inclusive society. That is, I have absolutely no problem with. I was critical of the demolition of the Babri Masjid. There is a speech of mine in Parliament in Rajya Sabha, which is often quoted, which was not very which was not praiseworthy of praising the BJP.
Including Mr. Advani in particular.
Yeah. But the point I'm making is, when I joined the Bharatiya Janata Party, Mr. Advani was very, very, very nice to me all along. And that enabled me to move from one position of responsibility within the BJP to another.
You remember, I'm sorry, I'm jogging your memory a little bit. In July 2002, when you switched sides with Mr. Yashwant Sinha, External Affairs and Finance Portfolio, it was said this was done at the instance of Mr. L.K. Advani, because it was felt that, at that point of time, there were too many controversies.
No, you are absolutely right. I had told Mr. Advani that if I am moving out of finance and if I don't go to External Affairs, which is the only other ministry that I would like to accept, then I'll be out of the government, I'll be a member of Parliament. He must have spoken to Mr. Vajpayee, and it was External Affairs where I got shifted. So there is no doubt that Advani played a role, and a very important role in that. The only difference that I had with Advani was on not his Pakistan visit, but a certain statement that he made about Jinnah being secular. And I did not agree with that statement, because he quoted one of the speech of Jinnah, and I did not think that absolved Jinnah of
This was during his visit to Pakistan.
Yeah, the communal role that he had played in our history. So there was that difference. Okay, but we made up. I met him subsequently, explained my point of view to him. He explained his point of view to me, and the issue was forgotten between him and me. Now, I have always been, and I'd like to say it specifically on record, I have been a great admirer of Advani ji, just as I have been a great admirer of Atal ji in the BJP. These were the two tallest leaders of the party under whom or with whom I had the opportunity of working, and I enjoyed every day of that. So,
now, why has he not
So it has not
you?
been. No,
why has it not
let me tell you.
Okay.
It has not been an off and on, hard and soft relationship with Advani. It has been consistently, except for that Jinnah remark, it has been a consistently cordial relationship that I have enjoyed with Advani ji. To the other question, I'll say, yes, during the last 4 years, the polity has been communalized, much more so than...
1 minute, sir. Mr. Advani also has not endorsed you. You said one of the reasons why you left the BJP on the 21st of April was because you did not get any support from within the party. And you mentioned Mr. Advani's name in that context.
Yeah, so that's a fact.
So he has
not criticized me. He has not supported
you. Okay.
Yeah, let's leave
now,
it at
coming
that.
to the communalization of Indian society in the recent past, what are your views on that?
My view is very clearly that communalization is taking place, and I'll go back to the old thesis that if there is communalization of the majority community, then in response there is a greater communalization of the minority communities. And if the reverse can also be true, that if the minority community is communalized more than acceptable levels, then there will be a response from the majority community. So these forces have been playing. I mean, there are leaders in the Muslim community who are as or even worse communalists than anyone in the Hindu community.
No, but when you look at the government today, Mr. Modi has completed 4 years as the Prime Minister, almost 4 years. And he talks about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. But do you believe in these last 4 years, the tensions between Hindus and Muslims in India have widened?
Yes.
And what you might describe as the majoritarian view, the view that the majority's view will always prevail, has become even more magnified, intensified in the recent past.
Yes, I'll agree with that. That there has been much greater communalization of the majority community in the last 4 years. They have become more assertive, and the minority community has been at the receiving end of this growing communal feeling among the majority community.
Okay. Let me ask you to gaze into your crystal ball a little bit and see where we are going to move, this country is, which direction is going to move in the coming, say, year or thereabouts. We have the Karnataka Assembly elections that are going to take place in, we'll know the outcome by on the 15th of May, around the 12th of May is when the elections will take place. Would you like to make any comments on how you see the whole campaigning that has been going on in Karnataka in the recent past?
I will not only confine myself to Karnataka.
You can go back to Gujarat.
I would say that
in
recent
yes.
elections, whether they are elections for the state assemblies or even by-elections.
You're talking about Uttar Pradesh
and
Gorakhpur,
Rajasthan,
Rajasthan,
wherever elections have taken place, the discourse has been very coarse. You know, the political level of political discourse should not be reduced to this level. Certainly not by people who are occupying highest positions of responsibility. For instance, in the Gujarat election, you know, talking about Pakistan, accusing a former Prime Minister of being in cahoots with Pakistan, in conspiracy with Pakistan, to defeat the Bharatiya Janata Party in Gujarat was, I think, absolutely uncalled for on the part of the Prime Minister. So similarly in Karnataka, the level of discourse has been brought down so considerably that it's not civilized anymore. That should not be the level, and that is not the level to which Vajpayee ever descended to win an election. You know, losing an election is not a sin, but spoiling the discourse, reducing the quality of discourse is a sin.
Okay. If you look ahead I'm going to come back to you with a few points on institutions and some of the issues which I haven't been able to touch on, including demonetization. But before, on the issue of politics, in the next 12 months, the standard talk is in certain circles is that the opposition is deeply divided. The country doesn't want one more of a ragtag coalition, whether it be of the Janata Party type or the United Front type, and the Congress is extremely weak, and therefore we are in a situation where the opposition can't come together. There are no tall personalities also. It is alleged that Mr. Rahul Gandhi, as the leader of the Congress, will not be able to put together that coalition. What are your views? Do you believe, just as once upon a time, anti-Congressism became the glue that ensured that whether it be the Bharatiya Janata Sangh or the BJP with the left, with the socialists coming together, the time has now come to form a kind of a front where the only common factor is anti-BJPism, if you like, or anti-Modiism, if you like?
No, first of all, let me tell you, you used the expression, the country does not want. The country would not want.
No, I'm saying in certain circles that has been claimed.
How do we know? How do we know what the country wants?
All right.
I mean, for us to sit 12 months before the election and say the country will not want this, country would not want this. The answer to your question is, if the Janata Party had not won the 1977 elections, Lok Sabha elections, do you think democracy in this country would have survived? The government might have fallen apart. It may not have survived. It may not have served its full term. but they rendered a historic service to this country by saving its constitution and saving its democracy. And
what about 1989?
And
Vishwanath Pratap Singh.
1989, I would not say that democracy was in danger as it was in 77 or is it today. So it didn't work out. But that is that apart. The very fact, suppose in 2011, in 2012, we were talking, would you have predicted that Mr. Narendra Modi will be the prime ministerial candidate of the BJP?
None of us were sure.
No, because he emerged. Leaders emerge. Leaders are not made, they are not created. They emerge out of circumstances, and therefore I don't despair. I don't despair that, opposition will not unite, Congress is leaderless, Rahul Gandhi will not carry any conviction, that they have no program except anti-Modism, anti-BJPism. No. Maybe they'll put together a program.
Okay.
Maybe they'll have a better program.
Would you work towards putting together such a program?
If given the opportunity, I most certainly will.
A sort of a common minimum program that we discussed?
More than a common minimum program. We should have a more than a common minimum program, and the parties in the opposition. Look at the Indian political scene today. There is the Congress party, which is the all India challenger to BJP.
It's the weakest it's ever been historically.
But it is weak. But then there are regional parties.
That's correct.
Which are dominant parties in their own respective
Trinamool
states.
Congress, Biju Janata Dal,
yes.
DMK, AIDMK,
Telangana Rashtra Samiti.
That's right.
So there are a whole lot of regional political forces. And then there is the Congress party. They'll have to at some point of time discuss all these things and come together if they want to put up a fight.
Would you like to yourself facilitate such a process through the Rashtriya Manch?
Let's see. I am not making any commitment at this point of time, but I certainly would like to advise political parties in the opposition.
Okay. All right. I want to take a step back. And one of the reasons you've talked about, you said, I don't know how you would compare that with the 70s and Indira Gandhi. You called the present government as a one-man show. Mr. Arun Shuri called it a dhai vyakti ka sarkar. But the centralization of power that we see today, would you say it's unprecedented? And I want to link this to a second part of the question, which is demonetization. But let me start with...
No, let me answer the first question first. We have been talking about the Gujarat model. What is the Gujarat model? As I have been able to understand it, Gujarat model is the chief minister, the chief minister's office, controlling everything through the bureaucracy, not through the ministers, through the bureaucracy. So the secretary to chief minister will be in touch with the secretary of a department or a ministry, and they'll be working out future programs or whatever has to be done by the government. That Gujarat model has been imported.
Didn't Indira Gandhi do something similar?
No, she did not completely
marginalize
the political personalities, So you still had important political personalities even during the emergency. So it was not the Gujarat model. The Gujarat model is now being implemented, has been implemented in Delhi, where the ministers have become irrelevant. It is the PMO, PMO and the ministry officials who are doing everything. So the PMO is directly in touch with the secretary of the ministry, often without the knowledge of even the minister in charge.
Can you give an example?
No, I will not like to give examples because
all right.
the examples will hurt. But I am sure I have personal knowledge, and not necessarily from my son, that this is what exactly is happening. And therefore, ministers have been reduced to nil responsibility in this government. This is the pattern.
Now, in November of 2016, the sudden, abrupt, disruptive decision to demonetize 86% of the currency. Would you describe this as a manifestation
as
of this
most
whimsical decision of one man?
It was the it is the most important example to date of that Gujarat model that I was describing. Was anyone in the cabinet taken into confidence?
He went through the motions of a cabinet meeting.
No. That
there
meeting
was a Reserve Bank of India.
That meeting was held.
RBI.
According to my information, that meeting was held, and he left the meeting in the middle, the Prime Minister, and said, "I'll make a speech and come back." And he announced the demonetization measure. As far as RBI is concerned, we have now Raghuram Rajan on record to say that he had opposed it. The new governor did not resist. Not only did not resist, but acted as a rubber stamp with his board of governors and approved of this suggestion. So everyone was steamrolled into accepting this Muhammad bin Tughlaq decision.
Tell me, there is speculation that Raghuram Rajan might even head the Central Bank of UK, but let's forget that. Do you believe that the RBI governor and the RBI as an institution has been undermined terribly? And this decision of the GST, and we are seeing the impact of GST still happening. The automated teller machines are going dry. This has done a lot of damage to the institution of the central bank and the apex monetary authority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has done a lot of damage, and nobody today believes in the autonomy of the RBI, probably not even the governor.
Mm-hmm. About job creation, what are your views? You know, we are getting all kinds of data that is coming up. Different people interpret data in different ways. What comes out from the Employees Provident Fund, what is done by the Labour Bureau. But there is an attempt being made to show that the present government's track record in job creation has not been as bad as the opposition has tried to make it out to be. What are your views?
My views are that job data does not become available anytime soon. You know, it has a long lag. Now, having said that, I'll make one general point. You talked about the Labour Bureau. That general point is that if the present system of job data collection does not bring the government, project the government in a good light, then we'll change the system. And that's exactly what is going to happen.
Same way as the gross domestic
product
numbers.
Yeah.
You have said that because of changing the methodology, you've artificially inflated that figure by roughly 2%.
Yeah, that is one. The second is that in our system of collecting data, as has been pointed out by a number of economists, we don't get unorganized sector data for almost 3 years. So you don't have the impact of GST and demonetization on the unorganized sector, which was the worst affected. It's only the corporate sector data which is suggesting that we are growing at 7.3% or whatever. So that apart, the point I'm making is, as far as jobs are concerned, now the government is referring to the Employees Provident Fund data that is being challenged by people. And where, you know, it must be seen. We have not referred, for instance, to the telecom sector. I saw a report in the media which said that 90,000 jobs are going to be lost in the telecom sector alone. We know the problems in the IT sector, where job creation, leave that apart, job losses are taking place. Sector after sector, Paranjay, of the Indian economy is in dire distress, isn't it? Construction, which is the biggest employer. What is happening in the construction sector?
So what can be done under the circumstances to revive the economy? Because you yourself have said...
No, it is not revived. I am saying that 7.3% would perhaps be 4.3%, even less. There is this famous economist called Arun Kumar, a former teacher of the Jawaharlal Nehru University, who believes that we are going at minus rate, but we are claiming it's 7.3.
Okay. If the economy is in such a terrible shape as you and others have made it out to be, what is the way forward? I mean, I want you, since we are running out of time and I've been talking to you for almost 1 hour, I want you to outline what needs to be done. And I go back to how I started. Your Rashtriya Manch and other people who are as critical of the present government as you are what do you think should be the way forward? A, the youth of this country, they are suffering the most because of job losses. Half the population of this country is today below the age of 25, 26. We have presumably one more year to go before the next general elections are concerned. What, according to you?
There is nothing which can be done in this last 1 year. This government has exhausted all its options and all its opportunities. There is nothing that one can expect from this government. We are already in the electoral mode. After Karnataka, we'll have the other state elections and then the parliament elections. So no major decision is going to be taken, especially unpopular decision. And you are aware of the fact that in order to move the economy, at times you have to take unpopular decisions. So they will not do that. So I don't expect anything from this government in the next 12 months. But what should be done to rev up the economy? There are a lot of things which have to be done. I used to say before this government came into position as the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party before the elections that we should hit the ground running when we came into government. And
because you had the bonanza of low oil prices.
Low oil prices, and we should do two things. One is deal strictly with the problem of bank NPAs, and two, clear all the stalled projects. How would the country move forward if projects are not there? So clear the stalled projects which have been held up for various reasons and deal with bank NPAs. How have we dealt with bank NPAs?
The government will tell you about more than half a dozen initiatives that they have taken.
No, but why has then it gone up to 9 lakh crore?
They are saying because it's now coming out into the open.
No, it is not. It was always there, and if the economy had improved really,
then the problem would have.
Then the problem would have been automatically solved.
So you think that the rise in the unpaid loans of the banks, and most of them are big business houses.
Yes. I mean, the total amount in about 9 lakh crore, which is bad debt, as far as the agricultural sector is concerned, is only 60,000 crore rupees. Only 60,000 crore. And why is there agrarian distress? As I said in that letter, if we are the fastest growing economy of the world, why are bank NPAs growing year by year, quarter by quarter? Why is there agrarian distress? Why is there so much unemployment? Why are sector after sector of the economy failing? So clearly the picture is not what the government would like us to believe.
Mr. Sinha, last question, positively the last one, political funding. When you have also had your share of people who have been accusing you that you didn't play it straight. Correct me if I'm wrong. There have been specific allegations leveled against you about the way your expenditure details to the Rajya Sabha while you were finance minister. I remember your association with an industrialist also came up, and you do mention all of these things also.
No, but how do I conclude? The conclusion is,
has this government made political
but
funding?
That you have raised that issue,
okay,
which is a long settled issue as far as I am concerned, let me clarify that I had reflected all these expenditures in my expenditure return, and that's how I was able to convince Parliament. But be that as it may, election funding is a very important issue, and the government has made it more opaque through these new bearer bond schemes.
So you are saying you made it public about the posters getting printed by Mr. Ashok Chaturvedi of Flex Industries, his employees staying in your house. All those you said you made public completely.
The employee took this house on rent.
Okay.
Now,
there was no quid pro quo as had been alleged.
No, what could be the quid pro quo? That he sent me a few pamphlets, printed some election material.
Okay.
I stood up in Lok Sabha, I stood up in Rajya Sabha and said whatever material he supplied has been accounted for in my expenditure return. I paid for them and I explained it to the Election Commission. Finished.
Okay. But this government, Mr. Jaitley said, I'm going to make the election funding system more transparent. There's the issue of electoral bonds. Then using the money bill, he does retrospective amendments twice to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Has election funding become more transparent? Has the nexus between big business and politics become more open?
It has become between big business and the government of the day, the political party in power, it has become a much more cozy relationship.